That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Lucy in the Sky, which opens October 4th, courtesy of Fox Searchlight Pictures. The directorial debut of Noah Hawley, who is... a
gentleman?
A gentleman. Who is best known for writing and directing Legion, starring Dan Stevens, the TV series, and the Fargo television series. And this premiered at the Toronto Film Festival, was it 2 weeks ago, to fairly borderline disastrous reviews. Yeah, and here we are.
Here we are. So it's loosely based?
Very loosely based. On the 2007, well, she was arrested in 2007, the astronaut Lisa Nowak. That's the real person's name.
Who was famously arrested for I'm not sure why she was arrested, but she was wearing a diaper when she was
caught.
I
think she drove to, like it does depict in the film, she drove to the location that her ex-lover was to I think she did assault him.
Did she?
I don't know. I didn't look it up.
All I remember from that incident was she wore a diaper on her cross-country.
All anybody remembers about that is...
Which is unfortunate because this is an accomplished woman who's been reduced to wearing adult diapers.
And it being kind of a cultural punchline.
Yeah, and being a punchline. So anyway, this film is...
But the film avoids... I think what's most notable about the film is that it avoids the diapers
but I don't think I need to
the chagrin of
but
men.
I don't need that because this is not like a biopic.
I agree. But I know a lot of people had an issue with that.
Anyway, so the basic story is Lucy, played by Natalie Portman, is an astronaut. She returns from space with what they call space lag.
Yeah.
Or what they presume is space lag. But really, it's made pretty obvious right in the beginning that she kind of like sees the world for what it is, which is very small.
Yeah.
And I think her life feels insignificant to her. So when she returns, she seems to be lacking something and just wants to go back to space. So all of her efforts are to make it onto the next mission. But she's preoccupied with... Or while she's preoccupied with that, it's obvious like her relationship is kind of...
With her husband.
6
years, played by Dan Stevens.
Played by Dan Stevens, who is also a NASA employee. He works in PR. He's like the quintessential nice guy. Their relationship is fine, except that she seems unsatisfied.
They're childless, which is and they care for her teenage niece, who's older. Her older irresponsible brother is off drifting around, being a poet, a hobo poet.
And ends up having an affair with another astronaut, Jon Hamm's character, and falls in love with him over the course of like a week. So
they set up the fact that she's, the type of person, she's a type A personality.
Well, hold on, finish. So then
But has never, yes, but...
So she has an affair with him. He kind of breaks it off with her.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's a ladies' man, so she quickly learns that he's doing the same thing to another female astronaut, played by Zazie Beetz.
He goes on his next space mission. She finds out she's been denied.
She's been grounded. By Colman Domingo, their boss.
So she won't be able to go on her trip. So that kind of like breaks her. And that's when she decides to drive like from Houston or Dallas, somewhere in Texas, to San Diego to meet up with Jon Hamm's character and the other female astronaut who he's also having an affair with, to confront him. And that's how the story ends. She confronts him, she kind of assaults him, she's arrested, and then that's the end.
Yes.
Basically. So overall, how do you feel about this film?
I feel...
You don't think it deserves the sort of like vitriol it received in Toronto?
Yeah, the shit kicking that it got in Toronto, it was a late premiere, which is usually never a good sign, because most of the press leaves at a certain point in the festival and premiered after that. Especially compared to something like Hustlers getting so highly praised out of that fest, and this being kind of kicked in the shins. There are a lot of problems with the film, but it's not the worst thing. I've ever seen by far. But I think what you and I do agree on about it is that the astronaut portion of it is kind of what's distracting, because it's really a very basic, simple story about
So my biggest issue leaving the screening was, if it weren't for the fact that this character is an astronaut, this would be a very like common story of a person in a relationship who cheats on their significant other, realizes they want a different life, and then the grass isn't always greener. And that's kind of the end. Like, it doesn't amount to anything tragic or...
No, except for this, like, great shame this woman has had to deal with for the media punchline she became, but...
Yeah, but even, I mean, the fact that this is not a biopic also makes me feel like we don't know how this ended for this character, Lucy. It literally goes from her being arrested for assaulting Jon Hamm's character to 3 years later, she's like tending to like bees. So it seems like she's fine.
Bees in the trap.
So I also don't think this film is the worst to like get such negative reviews.
But there are significant problems, I think.
There are. I will say I do think it's similar to Hustlers in that it's loosely based on true events that I don't think are that spectacular. I don't think strippers like hustling men for money is like this revolutionary story. I don't think an astronaut, which is like a super high stress profession that requires a lot of commitment, would feel like they're missing out on something and be super aggressive at wanting to be a winner. And so I don't think this is like a unique sensational story.
No, and both of the films, actually, come to think of it, try very strangely to deal with showcasing female agency, when instead of it kind of brushes that under the rug by not dealing with it head on, in both scenarios. But
so what do I like about this film? I think Natalie Portman gives a really, like, she's a great actor and she acts very well in this film.
I liked her a lot. She did bring me in. I felt very I felt bad for her. I felt some empathy for her, which is what's necessary for this to work at all. But the southern drawl that she employed did go in and out a little bit.
I didn't feel the empathy you felt, but I still think she did a good job with what she was given. Yeah, her accent was confusing to me. The wig was...
I felt like she was at odds with kind of... It's because it's two men wrote the story it's based on, Brian Brown and Elliot DiGiuseppe, and then Noah Hawley adapted from there. And I felt like maybe she was even struggling at odds with... Because the feminine agency is very superficial. What did make sense was kind of the confluence of events that would strip a person down into a spiral. And that is what I felt was empathetic about what was happening to her.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so there's that. I think Ellen Burstyn
is always very good.
Is really good as her grandmother, who kind of... she was the one who shaped her into being a gunner and an overachiever and not surrendering. So I think that was actually a really good plot element to explain Lucy's behavior. And I just think she's funny in general.
She is. I keep telling you need to watch Wiener Dog, because she's in one segment of that film and she's basically like a shit-talking grandma.
Well, you can cue that section up and I'll watch it. I think that's about it. The overall story to me seems like bloated and unnecessary.
It's pretty basic. And as I said afterwards, I kept thinking of like mid-'80s movies starring people like Sissy Spacek and Barbara Hershey and Sally Field, that were these more minimal, intimate dramas that allowed kind of a grander emotional palette.
So I agree. I would have preferred to see Natalie Portman play a character who is struggling with,
something.
Yeah, something. I mean, just like her success and recognizing that the life she's made for herself isn't the life she wants necessarily, which is a lot of movies. So I think, the fact that they took this sort of notable blip in the pop zeitgeist to base a story around, to me seems really gimmicky. I was saying after we left that this would be like if someone made a movie about a young woman making a sex tape where she's peed on by a famous man and becomes like famous, So like the Kim Kardashian story,
Uh-huh.
but then trying to make it like this dramatic piece, and it's like it's not. I don't think that like this event and this person warrants
The film to be based around that.
right. Like because again, if it weren't for the fact that she was an astronaut or is an astronaut, this would not be sort of like a spectacular story. It's not a spectacular story.
No, and it tries hard to distract you
Anyway.
with some like obvious and kind of lazy metaphors, like the butterflies. Like, and now that I think back on it too, I hated the fact that she carried around those butterflies in the cocoon so we could have the thing with the wasps.
Yeah, when
Like,
she chooses to leave her husband.
Like if this was a European filmmaker, you would have gotten one shot of like wasps eating a dead thing in a cocoon, and that would have been your one cue to be like But instead she has lines about it. I think it's gonna also compare, unfortunately and very unfavorably, to Ad Astra, which is just released with Brad Pitt as an astronaut, which is basically Conrad's Heart of Darkness in space. And has, I think, interesting things to say about post-colonial tendencies in our future. But as far as female astronauts goes, I think this has there will be an interesting comparison to Alice Winocour's Proxima when that finally comes out, which was also at Toronto, which is a very procedural film about Ava Green as an astronaut that's about to go on a year-long space mission and leave her daughter behind, and kind of the very different kind of demure energies of that film.
So I think
This is very showcase. This is supposed to be Reese Witherspoon who produced it. This is supposed to be a Reese Witherspoon role, and I think it feels like it's trying to be something more grand scale than it should be.
well, I feel like it didn't give me anything I needed because the space stuff is not there to sink my teeth into. It's not. I mean, there's some procedural stuff as far as like her training that is interesting, but not enough to like make it worth it. This character is not like hysterical and crazy enough to make it fun. I didn't empathize with her, so I didn't feel bad for this character at any point in the film. So it's just kind of in the middle for me. And yes, I do think that there are two performances that are strong, but then they're kind of canceled out by, I think, Dan Stevens' character. Just is cartoonishly like...
Nebbish.
Yeah, it's just so basic. Like, oh, my grandma said marry a nice guy, so they create this character who's just like...
He's just a schlub, kind of.
And then her niece, like, some of the lines they gave her were...
very obvious on the
Yeah.
nose.
But overall, I would give this film...
Jon Hamm.
Jon Hamm was like inconsequential. Like,
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, he was fine.
What's all the excitement about?
He was fine. Well, he's older now. I mean, I think the excitement was 10 years ago.
Was it? Yeah,
I don't
sure.
know.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a handsome man, but I don't care.
And Colman Domingo is the NASA, the head of NASA.
Sure. He was fine. I mean, he didn't have anything to do.
He had a nice moment when he told her no.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't think this film deserves like grossly negative reviews.
No.
I think it's okay. I would give it 2.5 out of 5 stars.
For the tenacity of Natalie Portman's performance, I'll up it a 3 out of 5.
Okay. All right.
Be fair.
Bye.
Bye.